Leo Ornstein was the first guy to get famous by smacking his fists on the piano. But fame is ephemeral, and he was all but unknown when he died at the ripe old age of 108. So how is this guy not more famous? I'm the Classical Nerd, and today we're talking about Leo Ornstein. Leo Ornstein was born in Russia, in a predominantly Jewish area known as the Pale. His musical talents were noticed by his cousin, who took the young Ornstein to see the pianist and composer Joseph Hoffman, who encouraged the young prodigy. While Ornstein was away at a conservatory, his family began to be threatened by the Russian pogroms. Disguised as natural uprisings, the pogroms were coordinated attacks that attempted to eliminate Jews in Russia. Ornstein and his family escaped by the skin of their teeth and made it to America, where he enrolled at the Institute of Musical Art. This school was later to become known as Juilliard. At the time, it was run by the conductor Walter Damrosch. Damrosch was impressed by Ornstein's talent, and he began learning many staples of the repertoire. As he practiced this repertoire, Ornstein began reporting hearing these strange, dissonant pieces in his head. Chords built on smacking the piano, and rhythmic energy and drive characterized these pieces. And Ornstein thought he was going crazy when he heard these things in his head. When he played them for audiences, they went nuts. While audiences didn't care for entire programs devoted to this futurist music, him using these as encores only accentuated his fame. Ornstein never got formal compositional training, and he said that the pieces he wrote down essentially are things that just came to him. After this initial futurist period, his harmonic language settled down and became much more serene and tonally based music. Gone were the eras of dissonance and cluster chords up and down the piano, and the musical avant-garde at the time more or less hated him. The avant-garde thought he was turning his back on their principles of driving forward towards futurism. It's not to say that Ornstein wasn't able to keep up his concert career, far from it. However, he did slow down his career starting in the mid-1920s, due to his marriage and the Great Depression, and simply wanting to retire from the hectic concert life activity. He all but disappeared after 1935. Ornstein and his wife reappeared in Philadelphia in the 1950s, where they taught at a music school. The most famous graduate was jazz saxophonist John Coltrane. When Coltrane came to Ornstein for composition lessons, Ornstein sent him elsewhere, because Ornstein never had the kind of rigorous compositional training he thought Coltrane needed. Ornstein had an administrative role in the school, but he also knew his weaknesses and knew that he wouldn't be able to help Coltrane as much as someone else. That's not to say he didn't continue to write. In fact, his masterpiece, the Piano Quintet, dates from the Philadelphia years. In it, he synthesizes the dissonance and raw power of his early works with rhapsodic Hebraic melodies in the strings, and while it never broke into the repertoire due to the composer's obscurity, it has been championed by many modern pianists. After selling the school, the Ornsteins moved around the country. Leo improvised on the piano when he could, and his wife encouraged him to write these compositions down. She, above anyone else, was convinced of Leo's genius, and it was through her efforts that his music was rediscovered by musicologists in the 1970s. She took the lead on publicizing pieces such as the Piano Quintet or his earlier works. Her efforts helped bring about a revival of Ornstein in the 1970s, when musicologists tracked them down across the country and ended up discovering them living in a trailer park in Brownsville, Texas. For the first time, pianists began committing his work to disc. Ornstein's son Severo, who was one of the pioneers on the internet precursor ARPANET, devised the first music notation software in the 1990s. Using this technology, Severo committed his father's works to the printed page and subsequently placed them in the public domain. He also created a system of categorization for these pieces. Ornstein died at the age of 108 in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He was musically active up until the very end. At 96, he wrote his 8th piano sonata, a synthesis of all of his musical styles up until that point. And when he published it, he was the oldest composer to have a work published. That work has since been passed, but still, the work of Leo Ornstein has still not fully broken into the repertoire, but there are pianists whose job it is to publicize obscure composers who have done an excellent job in bringing his music to the public's attention. It's also likely, although unconfirmed, that the creators of the video game Dark Souls named one of their characters after Ornstein. While he's probably most famous for his wild early pieces, his later pieces are just as unique. Passionate melodies above accompaniments of fourths and fifths make his work technically atonal. On top of this, he never really lost sight of his early futurist works. There are still many unperformed and underperformed gems in his catalog, but as time goes by, his obscurity only lessens.